News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with you till the top of the hour. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's get right to it. First, joining us from Swan Financial, Steve Phillips is in for Randy Rocky. You can reach Randy and everybody over there at 645-0736. Also here joining us is Lee Harris from Limestone Title and Escrow. Lee, thanks for joining us. You can reach her as legal counsel for Limestone, and her cell phone, it really does work, 649-7964. Lee, good to have you with us. Coming up a little later on today's show, 13 reasons you really need to do a better job cleaning your grill.
Well, I just got done cleaning my grill.
Good.
So
Good. Oh, this works. Yeah.
It was about a season and a half overdue. And it was gross to get in there, but it was well worth doing.
And that's
You're
my
get
son.
it every 10 years, whether it needs it or not.
That's right.
We need to more than that.
That's my son, Greg, who does our marketing, photography, and so much more. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, at 376-5483. And we're continually looking for homes to list. So you can reach me again, 376-5483. Okay. Listen, a lot of stuff going on in the past couple of days. And the number one thing, and Lee, I don't know how much you're in on this, pushing off of forbearance and foreclosures.
It's trying to get relief still for the people who can't come up with the rent.
And we could do a whole show on this, Bob. You know, I go back and forth. I've been having a lot of discussions, even on my social media channels, about rent support. And if you need rental support, first and foremost, there is a link. If you go to Greg Sokoler or the Sokoler team social media pages, we have a link to the Louisville.gov page that does have some rental assistance programs out there. And, you know, the government let a couple of days lapse before the moratorium, and then it came back. And so, but what Bob was mentioning too is there's two sides of the fence, right? There is the landlords who are owed this rent, who now may go into foreclosure because they're still not getting this rent. Is there protections for them? And then you have tenants. You certainly don't want to be putting people out into the street during a pandemic.
So the question is, are you protected under the new eviction plan? And here's what is important. The new order covers renters in areas experiencing substantial and high levels of coronavirus cases. Now, you got to go to the CDC website to see if the Louisville and Southern Indiana area is affected by this. If we have a high level or substantial level, some 80% of counties in the country are pretty much covered by this new edict. You'll lose protection if your county has 14 consecutive days that fall below those levels. That's according to a professor at Wake Forest University. And as a result, she is saying that it is more important to monitor the COVID rates in your community for a variety of reasons.
This moratorium is based off of your local municipality's virus levels, then, if that's what that's what they're saying to read into, which is very interesting. To see that maybe different states or different cities are going to be moving in and out of this at different rates.
To be eligible, you also have to meet the requirements of the former eviction ban, such as having earned less than $99,000 in 2020 or 2021. I think that may double if you're married, so be concerned about that. And in addition, you need to attest that you've experienced a financial hardship during the coronavirus pandemic and that you've applied for rental assistance, and that eviction could lead to you becoming homeless or needing to double up with others.
Well, and let's face it, this money is still going to be due. And people who aren't paying rent are only going to be kicking this barrel down the road. And in a couple months, when we see where we are, there's only going to be more money and more foreclosures. So we got to pay attention to this.
Unless the government comes forward and helps bail out those who are behind. So, Steve, I'm going to get to you in a second. Lee Harris, so from your perspective, a legal perspective, the people who own the homes are going absolutely crazy that they're not getting any income from these renters. Anything that can be done, Lee, on this?
I mean, yeah, it is. It's a very hard balance because I'm in both positions. I'm also a landlord, and but I also understand that I don't want the people who I care about, to not have a home. So, because I have good tenants and I want them to stay there. So that right now, I don't know that there's a lot that landlords can do except for what Greg was talking about, which is all of this is getting added on to the end. So it's not that they're not due the money. It's just that they can't get it right now. And I understand that some people, after all this time, it's going to be difficult on them to come up with the extra money to pay their own mortgage plus their rental property mortgages. And if that assistance could help both sides, that could be the one thing that could help both sides. It could help the renters to, be able to pay down that debt at the end, and it could pay back those landlords who've been out so much money. And so, that's probably the only thing that really is going to help, because we know probably that someone who hasn't been working or hasn't had enough money for a year and a half, it's not all of a sudden going to come up with a lump sum payment of 18 months rent.
Well, and that's where I had this conversation where there has to be a weaning, not just a cutoff and let's throw everybody in the garbage. And hopefully the system, and you got to look at the system and who created the system and how we get out of it, right? And so when you have the unemployment insurance coming in, and hopefully that would be able to pay. If you're a landlord, hopefully you can help direct your tenants to some sort of these forgiveness programs, and you have knowledge to hopefully put money in their pockets, which comes back to you directly rather than a stimulus check, which may not go to you because, face it, and Bob's trying to stay neutral, and I'll say it, a lot of people feel like, oh, well, why aren't these people giving that money to their landlords? Well, you could be a single income family with multiple kids, and you've got a really hard time keeping a roof over your head, keeping food in their mouths, paying for school supplies. So you could go down that route, but a majority is, how do you wean these people off the system that the system created? And hopefully the forbearance programs will help extend that. When we get out of this mess, we just need direction and foresight from our people who created it.
For the tenants, I would say definitely apply for these programs, because the one thing that I have heard over this past year and a half from landlords is, that the tenants aren't finishing the application process, and there is money sitting there waiting for them. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't done it and you're a tenant, take the time to do it, and then maybe you can start knocking off some of this debt.
Congress has allocated more than $45 million in rental assistance to address the crisis, and only a sliver of the money is actually spent so far. So if you're approved for relief, you could get up to 18 months of rent covered. That's a plus, but you need to apply for the rental assistance. That's the first thing. The second thing from Steve over at Swan, is there a concern for people who own rental properties that they could be foreclosed on because they're not able to pay the mortgages on those rental properties? What are you hearing from your colleagues around the country?
Well, for the most part, if the banks are in the business of making, getting your payments on a monthly basis, and if they don't get them, then there is that foreclosure process they're going to start. As far as, what is going to occur with the benefit package that Congress does end up giving out for this type of benefit that's very much needed, I don't know exactly how that's going to impact them. I can't say long range or long term, with regards to this. We are probably seeing a higher foreclosure rate coming for that reason. How big of it? How much is it? How prolonged is it? That's uncertain. But the outcome is if these payments aren't going to get made, somebody is going to have action taken. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, the landlords, the tenants, those are the ones that are going to be harmed.
I got to believe that the tenants are, the worst scenario would be tenants get the money and they keep it, or the people who are renting, or they give it to the landlord. So they pay the mortgage, and then they still get foreclosed on because they already had foreclosure proceedings started against owners. That's the worst case scenario. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
And my thing is, and I want to point out it's Louisville.gov. It's called Neighborhood Place. If you go to the Louisville.gov's website, there is direction to help if you need rental assistance and to apply. Well, I want to know, why aren't landlords given it an ability to apply for rental assistance? You don't need your tenant to do it.
Or a moratorium. For anybody who wants to see a replay of today's show and get maybe more insight as to what's going on, LouisvilleAnswers.com is a redirect that takes you to our YouTube channel. Also, if you want to see what people are saying about us, you can go to LouisvilleZillow.com to read our reviews. And if you want to see some video of people who have sold their homes using us, go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. And by the way, if you need us to come out and help you get your home sold, go to LouisvilleHouseDoctors.com. Yes, we make house calls. All right. Again, later on, just a little bit later on, reasons to clean your grill. First, let's go to some of the questions. Again, we're doing this over Zoom because of the COVID. We're still in a COVID situation, so we're not back in the studio. So we ask any of our listeners who want to get a question on the air, send it to me, Bob at WeSellLouisville.com. in the subject line, say radio question, and then just simply put the question in the body of the email. Let's start with you, Lee. We heard about this several times, actually. This is becoming a more and more common question. Patrick, having a home builder was supposed to be finished by September, but is now letting him know that he, as the builder, is going to need 3 more months because of the shortage of wood and the shortage of manpower. And apparently, Patrick has already given notice to his landlord and has to be out at the end of next month. So is there anything he can do at this point? He's kind of in a bind. Thoughts?
Yes, I've been hearing that a lot because there is a shortage of a lot of things out there, and a lot of the things have also gotten more expensive. Mm-hmm. And so houses that, could have been built for X dollars 2 years ago are now X plus a lot more. Right. So I'm sorry, Patrick, that there's not much you can do. Obviously, if the house isn't done, it's not done. It's like getting blood from a turnip. You can't get blood from a turnip, right? So the first thing I would do is go to your landlord and try to extend your lease. If not, if you have family and friends, alert them. I might be staying with you for a couple months, or you can get a long-term hotel, or maybe a short-term lease at an Airbnb or a short-term lease somewhere else. But it's a problem that doesn't have a practical solution because the house is not going to be ready to live in, and therefore you can't live in it. And obviously you can't close on it until it has a certificate of occupancy and is ready to go.
And there's no legal action you can take against the builder, essentially.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Well, let's get one mortgage question before we take a break. Steve Phillips over at Swan. Question from Oscar. He made a mortgage payment. Apparently, the mortgage company is saying they never received that payment. And now Oscar's afraid it's going to impact his credit score when he applies for a new loan with the house he's about to buy. But there is some good news, right? If he's behind how long before it hits his credit rating?
Yeah, so you can be late as long as you're not more than 30 days late. That's what will trigger the hit to the credit score. So technically on a 30-year loan, if you paid your mortgage on the 29th of every month, you would never have a late mark on your credit. So depending upon when that payment was versus, or when it was due versus when he made it, that's going to trigger the yes or no to whether it's impacting his credit. The advice is reach out to his mortgage company if he hasn't already done it, obviously, mm-hmm. and get the payment made. Get the payment made as fast as possible. If this was the July payment he's talking about, the damage may already be done. You can possibly, depending upon your relationship with them, sweet talk them, maybe go up a few chains of command and possibly get something worked out with them if this was a one-time event.
Yeah, especially if you have proof that you sent that mortgage payment in. So maybe it was an electronic transfer. I don't know how, but that could help you with your case against them removing a black mark if you're over that 30-day late notice, right? So that some good news for Oscar. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your grill. I read this. I went, oh, my goodness, I have to do this. So I'll read it to you. Really,
you want to do whatever it is.
It is, yeah. It's an eye-opener. With us, in for Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial, is Steve Phillips, who's also a loan officer over there. And you can reach Steve and Randy at 645-0736. Also, we've got Lee Harris, legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow, and her direct cell phone number is 649-7964. My son Greg does our marketing, photography, and so much more is with us as well. And then you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483. We are back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you to the top of the hour. With us, we've got Lee Harris, legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow, does such a great job. She was a former legal counsel for the Kentucky Real Estate Commission. You can reach her on her cell phone. She's great. They do great closings, and she's very knowledgeable in a variety of ways. And you can reach her at 649-7964. Also, in for Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial, loan officer Steve Phillips. And you can reach Randy and Steve at 645-0736. My son Greg, who does our photography and marketing and so much more, is with us as well. And you can reach me because we're constantly looking for homes to sell. We've got a lot of buyers. You won't believe how many buyers, and we would love to be able to put them in contact with you as a seller. You can reach me at 376-5483. All right. Went out to my grill the other day, went to turn it on. It didn't go on with the automatic igniter. I looked in it deeply and I said, oh, there's a problem here. There's a lot of stuff that's in there. So here are some reasons that we should all be cleaning our grill. And Greg is the poster child for having just done this.
It was a process. Well, I bought myself a pressure washer for Father's Day. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I haven't cleaned my grill. Let me do that. And let me just tell you, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
Yep.
And it needs to be done.
So the first thing, you want to eliminate built-up carcinogens. So even if you dutifully scrape your grill after each and every use, over time carcinogens can build up on the grates and be transferred to your food during the cooking process, which could pose health risks. So one of the most effective ways to rid your grill meats of carcinogens is to clean off your grill. So be sure to do that. Clean grills have more longevity. Yes, of course, that's pretty natural. You would think we would know that, but you clean them, they'll last longer. Prevent bacteria from contaminating your food. Now, look, the carcinogens are one thing, but there's bacteria that could be growing on the grill after you turn it off. So you won't want to put a food on a pan that you hadn't washed, right? So it's the same thing with the grill. In theory, your meat will taste better. I mean, there's nothing like the taste of a freshly grilled hamburger, except if it has the remnants of the other night's teriyaki pork chop marinade on it. So cleaning that.
But that's just added flavor. I know there's some who are going to debate you. It's like a good cast iron skillet that you never really truly like scrub with soap. So you got to have some flavor built in.
Yeah, that's gross.
You could be attracting pests, just so you know. It's a dark, private space.
Flies.
I don't know if you remember this, Greg, but many years ago, I went to open the grill when you and my sisters were still living at home, and inside was a little varmint that had taken up residence. So yeah, that's. I don't know if I remember that.
I remember like bees going into. I feel like I had a wasp nest in one. We haven't used it for a while.
Your grill will heat up faster if it's clean. Excess grease can cause flare-ups on your food, so that's
and the distributed heat too, right? You want to heat in cooking service, so that affects it.
You can prevent rust, which is not only unsightly on a grill, but it's also unsafe for your family if ingested. So you want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
You can prevent scale from getting on your food. Cleaning out your grill also means paying attention to all parts of the grill, not just the interior.
Yeah, like the drip pan in the bottom. That's the gross one that gets all the flies. You gotta get the replacements.
Something called Gedley.
I'm getting a lesson out of this. Is just don't use my grill.
No, clean. Have your husband clean the grill.
There's a lot of maintenance. That's all. That's why it's not,
Something called scale, which is a buildup of carbon and soot on the hood. And I've seen this on mine. And the sides can leak into the inside and get on your food. Not exactly the most appetizing or helpful. Routine cleaning can help you spot grill damage. Yeah, that's a concern. You can prevent mold growth if you're cleaning your grill, which, let's face it, your food's nearby, even if it's cooked. Reduce your chances of cross-contamination and causes of food poisoning. It can be especially prevalent when you're grilling. And then finally, if your grill is filthy, I will attest to this. If the grates are filthy, you will not get those crisp, coveted grill marks and lines on your meat. So those are some really good reasons why.
And really important, be careful. This is going around a lot. Be careful the type of brush you use, because there's some of those really cheap bristle ones that fall off, and there's been reports of like the little metal shards, people eating them and going to the hot. Careful.
I do every one of mine away.
Yep, that's a great point. Glad you brought that up. Yeah, be careful of what you're.
They've got those new they're not metal. They're like a material. It's like that holds water in them, but it's like a really rough, like a really rough sponge that doesn't burn. You dip it in water and then you rub it across the front of the grate, and it uses steam. They're actually pretty cool.
Let's move on. Questions from our listeners. This, again, for Lee, a local real estate agent is writing this one. So the agent wants to remain nameless. Yeah. She's saying her clients are insisting that she write offers on a number of different homes at the same time. Apparently, these buyers have lost out on a number of offers, so they're hoping they can hedge the odds against them losing out to offers that by writing multiple offers. Mind you, the market has slowed down. Hopefully, I think we can all agree we've seen
a little bit
as people are going back to school. I think that
people are a little bit fed up with the market in general. Everyone's kind of taking a break.
A lot of that fatigue.
There is fatigue, but let me tell you, if you're out there thinking about whether you should get back in the search for a home, now's the time. The number of homes up above 1,600 consistently now, and there are fewer buyers out there. So this is the time to think about it. Anyway, so going back to this agent, she's afraid that she'll lose the clients if she doesn't go along with their plans, but she knows it's not necessarily the right thing. From a legal perspective, Lee, what would you say?
It's dangerous for the buyer because let's say they did put out, 3 or 4 offers on different homes that they would be willing to take, if they got that one. And their plan obviously is if they get one of those to then withdraw the other offers. Well, the danger for the buyer is that they could get 2 or 3 or 4 acceptances before they have withdrawn them. Then they literally have 2 or 3 or 4 binding contracts on properties, and all of those sellers would have the right to enforce those contracts and therefore seek damages. Let's say they had other buyers out there that, they didn't pick and they went away, and they have, now they don't have any buyers anymore. They were going to sell it very quickly. I mean, it's a very dangerous thing to do. She can remain anonymous. If she wants to tell her clients to call me, I'll be happy to, tell them the cons of that. And the other people are going to feel, the sellers and the agents on the other side are going to feel like they're being sort of,
manipulated.
Yeah,
right,
I've got an idea, if I made it, to settle this, and this can be good for across the nation, right? So you have this force of the hand because clients are getting upset, they're getting annoyed. Listen, I could tell my client, you want to write 4 offers, you got 400 times 4 for inspections. You're going to have to back out of 3 of them if you really want to. But if our board went ahead and made a mandatory question that now you can say as your agent, you say, well, listen, our board mandates that we specify if we're making any other offers currently at the same time. So you do a very simple check form on the MLS contract that says, do you currently have any other offers outstanding in the current real estate market, Louisville, Kentucky? Yes or no? And then you could see that as a contingency. So you could still accept it with that saying yes. And you could say, oh, no, their fish might be in some other barrels. We're not going to look at your offer. It's not a strong offer. Or we have no offers and we'll go ahead and look at and take this offer.
Yeah.
We could think it in that quick.
It's a definite concern. And
I think it gets to be more of an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, one more question. Hopefully we've got time for this. This is going over to you, Steve. Sammy applied for a mortgage. He paid a fee to lock in the rate. The closing took longer than normal, and then the rate lock expired. So the rate actually went down, and the lender is apparently refusing to give Sammy the lower rate. Is that ethical? So let's take this on at a couple of different things. Explain what a rate lock is, Steve.
Certainly. So when you get a contract on the home, the lender is going to basically lock that rate in for that day's pricing. When you sign the papers and you agree to that rate, that's good for your budget and payment you're comfortable with. The lender will lock that in. He'll protect you from any increases to the market rates, which in this environment is a good thing. So in this time, that rate lock is locked for a certain period of time, depending upon what they lock it in for. Unfortunately, paying to rate lock is, I'm sorry to hear that he had to pay that, because certainly that's not what I would consider to be standard procedure for the most part in today's industry. We as one, we have $0 in closing costs. We charge our client specifically anything up front. We just, we get paid by the lender, so we don't have client costs that we charge our clients, but to charge them to do something as simple as rate lock in, unfortunately, it has happened, and there's not much you can do about that part. Moving forward with what is his repercussion with regards to not getting the ability to get the lower rate. Generally when you do miss a rate lock, the investor is going to penalize you. Even if the rates have gone down, they will look at what is called worst case pricing or worst case scenario, which means what is worst case, the rate that the day is or the rate that you locked it in at initially. And in this case, because the banks don't do this out of the goodness of their heart, they are going to consider what is best for them. So even if the rates did come down, If the rate lock expires, you're still going to be stuck with that higher rate.
Well, I feel sorry for Sammy, but at least we understand what was going on there, Steve. Really, a very good explanation. All right, so we are out of time on today's show. Again, a reminder, if you want to see what people are saying about us as a team,